all the animals huddled in their sheds. But when morning broke, they all came outside to see the horror of what had happened. Do you know who's responsible for this? Snowball! There is a reward to anyone who kills him and brings him back to us alive. Long live the windmill. Long live Animal Farm. All of our hard works in the windmill have been destroyed.
In the winter months, food rations became smaller and smaller, but changes were never called reductions, but rather readjustments. Furthermore, Squealer ranted on and on about how much better things were now that Jones was gone. Comrades, you have no doubt noticed that food supplies run low, but our brilliant leader Napoleon has come up with a solution. Napoleon has landed a contract that will provide us with enough money to buy grain until summer, and all that is asked of you is that the hens produce 400 eggs a week.
But it is so close to spring. That is murder. We will not stand for this.
In response to this insubordination, Napoleon cut their food rations and announced that anyone who gives them food would be executed. The hens held out for 5 days, but eventually gave in to Napoleon's orders. 9 of them had died, and the 3 hens who had orchestrated the strike knew they would be killed. Notably, though, this was the first instance of civil disobedience since Jones's day.
Napoleon is going to make an announcement, and everybody is to gather out in the yard. Squeak, squeak.
He was in league with Snowball and was planning to take over the farm. Anyone else who is part of the conspiracy should come forth now.
The idea of strike snowballs. We have been contacting him at night. I peed in the drinking water. I peed in the drinking water. I peed in drinking water. Oh, that's so cute.
That song will no longer be sung. It was a song of the rebellion which is finished. Now that those last traitors have been taken care of, there is no more use for the song. There was much interest around the timber Animal Farm had produced. A bidding war had started between Frederick and Plinkington. When Napoleon favored Plinkington's offer, Frederick would raise his bid, and vice versa, so this went on for a while.
I have sold the timber to Frederick for enough money to buy pots for the windmill. Yay! Woohoo!
Oh, God.
They are forgeries! Frederick got the timber for nothing!
Frederick is attacking Animal Farm. The men are at the gate right now.
To arms, comrades!
The animals soon realized that they didn't stand a chance against Frederick's 15 men, half a dozen of which who carried guns, so they retreated back to the barn. They were planting explosives in the windmill. I knew this would happen. We have won! But we took the land back. Several animals, including 2 geese and some sheep, were killed in the bow of the windmill, as Napoleon called it. However, many more were injured. Napoleon himself had been grazed by a bullet, and Boxer had a split hoof. There were pellets in his leg, and it occurred to Boxer for the first time that he might not be as strong as he used to be. But when their flag was flown and the anthem was sung, animals did feel victorious. Also, to ease the pain, Napoleon bestowed upon each animal an apple as a reward. The pigs, on the other hand, found a case of whiskey in the basement, and the next day no pig was heard of till 12 o'clock. When a very hungover Squealer finally did come outside, he announced that Napoleon was dying and had proclaimed as his last act on earth that any animal who drank alcohol would be executed. There was a horrific gasp among the crowd. Napoleon dying? What would they do without their leader? But as dinner rolled around, Napoleon was reported as feeling much better, and that a corner of the field would be set aside for barley. Though he was injured, Boxer never took a day off work until one day he collapsed. Several of the animals rushed back to the farm to tell Squealer what happened, but only Clover stayed by his side. Sexual tension. Napoleon announced later that day that he would send Boxer to a veterinary clinic where he would be attended to.
Fools, can't you read the side of the van? It says Alfred Simmons, horse slaughter and Gloople and Willingen. They're going to kill him.
Don't be alarmed, comrades. Do you really think that Napoleon would send his most loyal worker to the glue maker? Of course not. The explanation is really quite clear. The veterinarian bought the van from Alfred and has painted over the logo again. Several days later, it was reported that Boxer had died after being given all the medical attention a horse could receive. There was a banquet held in his memory and eulogies sung about him. Napoleon himself addressed the animals with Boxer's 2 favorite mottos: "I will work harder," and "Napoleon is always right." The next day, the pigs didn't get up till noon, and it was rumored that they had acquired enough money to buy another case of whiskey. Meanwhile, the farm had undergone many changes. Firstly, it had become rather crowded as several sows had given birth to 31 piglets, and Napoleon, who was coincidentally the only candidate for a father, announced that a school would be built. He himself would teach, but only pigs would be allowed to attend school. Also, the harsh winter left the animals cold and hungry, but they were proud. More so than before, Napoleon had proclaimed that on Sundays all animals shall leave the work at an appointed time and participate in a spontaneous demonstration of sorts, in which a procession will walk across the farm and listen to speeches and songs. The rebellion and Jones were just stories now, and the only surviving animals that had been around that time were Clover, Benjamin, Moses, and several of the pigs. There were new animals on the farm as well. 3 new horses were hard workers, but couldn't learn the alphabet for the life of them. They never got past the letter B, and they also believed everything they were told, especially by Clover. As for the windmill, it had been completed, but it only milled corn, which brought in a handsome profit, and the electricity that was talked about in Snowball's day was no longer discussed. Then, one day, Squealer directed the sheep to a corner of the pasture, and they weren't heard from for the rest of the week.
Tomato Farm.
All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others.
I am the Boxer, vote for me if you want to live.